Hi there, Jim Werbenoth again, and I'd like to build on last week's video about Occam's razor. This time I'm proposing a little bit of a thought experiment, minus like Schrodinger's cat being stuck in a box, but a thought experiment nonetheless, and an exercise in critical thinking. Tonight we're going to look at Bigfoot and apply Occam's razor to what Bigfoot's nature might be, assuming that it's real. Sort of a leap there, but just bear with me. This is going to be a foundation of the whole exercise. This isn't so much about Bigfoot or Sasquatch per se, but about critical thinking, which is what I teach as part of my digital literacy course, especially at American Public University system. So don't worry, we're not going off into Looney Land here or anything, but we're just going to use Bigfoot as part of this exercise. And the foundation is Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the most correct one. And it is something that I looked at last week for another video that was specific to Occam's razor without any other elements really added in. I used some examples, but this was strictly about Occam's razor. Tonight we're going to apply it to the Bigfoot issue. And this shows that Occam's razor is applicable to the esoteric. It's not just for the hard sciences, social sciences, whatever. We can apply it really to anything and see if it stands up. Now, the central premise here is that Bigfoot is real. Okay, you might be real skeptical about that. That's fine. Skepticism makes the world go round. You might already believe in Bigfoot. That's just fine. But either way, we're just going to go with the premise that he's real. And you could use any name you want: Sasquatch, the Ohio Grassman, the Florida Skunk Ape, or from Arkansas, the Fouke Monster. All of them mean basically something the same or very similar, which is a hominid-like creature that looks like half ape, half man, walks bipedally, and may or may not exist. But like I said, for the purposes of this video and this exercise, we're just going to figure that he does exist. We have three basic possibilities for his essential nature. The first one is that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature. An animal, a man, whatever. It's a physical, earthbound being. Next one is, and this is something that I have seen and talked to some investigators who take seriously, is that he might be a space alien. The third possibility that we're going to examine is that he is an interdimensional entity. However you want to look at that, but a traveler from another time and space. Just bear with me here. First, let's look at the flesh and blood creature here. This is a still from the famous or infamous Gimlin-Patterson film from about 56 years ago of what is purported to be a Bigfoot in Northern California. It's probably the most famous or infamous image that you're going to see. And it has a weird walk. It may or may not be female, but has a conical crest on its head, much like a male great ape. But it's up to you to decide if this is actual evidence or a guy in a suit. The next possibility for your consideration is that Bigfoot is a space alien. Some have reported seeing Bigfoot-type creatures at times in places close to UFO sightings. Again, this is up to you to consider, but I have talked to investigators who consider this a very real possibility. Next, we have the possibility that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being, something that comes through a hole in time or space, from another dimension, from another universe, if you will, but has made its way to this world. And again, this is something that I have heard discussed. It's not my idea. Okay, now let's look at the possibilities here. The flesh and blood being is the simplest. This could be a descendant of the Neanderthals that evolved a large size and talent at hide and go seek. Something that evolved here. It could be a lost great ape. It could be whatever. We know that they exist. And if you have any doubts that flesh and blood beings exist, look in the mirror. You're one. Second, we have the space alien. This is something far more complex, and it involves a lot of assumptions and a lot of considerations, variables, and functions that go way, way beyond a flesh and blood earthbound being. So this becomes a lot more complicated and therefore a lot commensurately less probable under Occam's razor. The third, the interdimensional being, is the most complicated of them all. And this is really beyond fringe science, or what the Germans used to call border science. So the flesh and blood being actually is the winner here as far as Occam's razor goes. And remember too that each option adds complexity on top of the first. And it's not a matter just of adding complexity, it's multiplying it. So the space alien thesis is several times at least more complex than the earthbound physical being thesis, and the interdimensional being is several times at least more complicated than the space alien. Remember too, I mean, if it's an alien, if it's an interdimensional being, it's probably an alien coming through a Terran space and time. Whether it's flesh and blood, who knows? But we're getting a lot of complexity here. And each one actually builds on the essence of the previous thesis. A space alien is most probably a flesh and blood being in the first place, and an interdimensional being is most probably an alien. Unless you know something that I don't about humans going between dimensions and time travelers, but I don't. So the winner here is the flesh and blood being. Under Occam's razor, that requires the least complexity, the fewest additional variables and functions, and the fewest number of assumptions that we can't prove right now. And the flesh and blood being could actually be a human in a gorilla suit. We know that furries are there. We know that the gorilla suits are there. Heck, last weekend I was in downtown Pittsburgh and saw a lot of people wearing animal costumes for the Furry Anthrocon convention. Yes, I can verify their existence. Now, if Bigfoot sightings are people in such costumes, that conforms with the first possibility. Just because it's human doesn't mean it's mysterious, doesn't mean it's another species. It's just a human pretending to be one, and he's a flesh and blood being too. Okay, you having fun yet? Well, I did putting this together, and it just shows too that we can engage in exercises of critical thinking with stuff that's more fun than maybe you see in the classroom. Something that is part of our pop culture, and Bigfoot is definitely part of that. So from now on, I do invite you all to keep your minds open, research, analyze, and try to think critically about this and all other issues. I won't tell you what your conclusion should be in this case. They should be yours, and they should be based on something beyond faith and trust in others, It should be based on your own analysis. And just stay skeptical, my friends, and hope to see you for the next video. And thank you for your time.